In case you didn't know, Kevin Durant was recently dealt to the Houston Rockets. NBA fans knew it was simply a matter of time. The situation in Phoenix degraded quickly and in a rather grotesque fashion. But Phoenix overall in the Big Three era is a cautionary tale, but to understand it we have to rewind. And we have to start by zooming in on Matt Ishbia. But God bless him. His willingness to open up that checkbook, his all-in mentality and hunger as an owner is inspiring, but his aggression backfired. And it put the Phoenix Suns into a proverbial corner. Acquiring Bradley Beal in the summer of 23 meant taking on his 5-year, $251 million deal, and possibly overlooking that no trade clause that was left in the fine print of the contract. But the idea of a Big Three featuring Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal was apparently just too hard to pass on. To make this long story short, Phoenix was ousted with an outdated team building model. And what do I mean by that? Phoenix had 3 offensive juggernauts that left them without any form of consistent defense and very thin and suspect depth. The first year of this Big Three resulted in a sweep, dare I say a dismantling, led by young upstart Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves. Following this early playoff exit, Frank Vogel was let go. But Tyus Jones is signed, Monte Morris is signed, and that's supposed to bring a steady hand and a sense of floor generalship to the guard spot in Phoenix. Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro are drafted to bring some defense and youth. But did that solve things? No. In the following year, a hot 9-1 start was quickly buried underneath defense and severe rebounding issues that plagued them all year long. We even saw multiple verbal spats between KD and Coach Budenholzer. Starting this offseason, Phoenix knew that parting ways with Durant was the quickest way to regain control over their franchise and ultimately their future. So he was unloaded to Houston. In exchange, the Suns received back Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and the 10th pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, which turned out to be Duke's most wholesome product, center Kaman Malawach. This trade represents a new era for the NBA, but for Phoenix, but also for Kevin Durant. He'll start this upcoming season at 37 years old. While still playing elite basketball, we know this can't continue forever. Where does this deal put the Rockets amongst the Western Conference elite? A plethora of on-court questions, and I want to thoroughly dive through those with y'all today. Let's chop it up. The most obvious starting point is the spacing. What can KD add to this roster, and what can their offensive rebounding add to KD's game? These are the problems you face when you're the 9th least efficient team in the league shooting the 3. On this isolation, Jimmy Butler's able to play the gap. Draymond's a spy on the lane line. Sengun tries to flash to alleviate the pressure, but Podziemski tags him and takes that option away. In short, teams felt overly comfortable loading up and packing the paint. We've got Podziemski as an early form of help, and then we've got Post ready to rotate over to help Jalen Green, and Podziemski was ready to help the helper. All bases were covered. Let's contrast this with Kevin Durant. As Booker goes left off the pick and roll, the weak side help is pulled in over at the midline, but Kuzma's late to rotate due to the gravity of KD. On this rep, the Nets completely top-lock KD on the down screen, eliminating him from any action. So that takes away gap help and allows Booker to drive in one direction, then hit his counter, and this is how KD helps out his teammates. Obviously, Durant's spacing is more than beneficial for Houston, but they provide an element he hasn't had in a while: elite offensive rebounding, which typically leads to quality threes and layups. One of the most intriguing elements of this deal is how Houston will look in the half court. Durant is great in movement, great in structure, but also great out of structure. And for an offense that relied heavily on paint touches and offensive rebounding, how does the presence of Kevin Durant change that? A new dynamic Durant brings is being elite in structured movement. Right here, they have a gorgeous set where Devin Booker clears out, that occupies AD for a second, then they sweep through Durant on that down screen, creating a quality three-point look. This time it's a pick and roll with the shallow cut through. Durant's malleable and can run a lot of these different type of actions. He rejects the away screen, Nurkic goes up to set the ball screen, and then Durant cuts right through the pick and roll, causing miscommunication. He pops into space, another great quality triple. Yes, Kevin Durant is elite in structured movement, but there's also a lineage of actions and sets he's been running his entire career. Here's zipper action where they typically start him near the middle of the baseline, give him a down screen, and let him operate in space. These actions have really followed him his entire career. He's running this with Ben Simmons in Brooklyn. This one's a bit of a tweak and a modification. It's more of an option route where he could take this baseline screen from Joe Harris and come out that way, but he elects to take the zipper from big man Sharp, comes right around that free throw line, and if you don't show hard, that is cash every time. Another staple in Durant's game is simple pin downs. He could sell these great with going baseline because they connected with lobs all the time. Then Adams comes back to set the screen. If you try to shoot the gap, he'll flare. Cash. Here we go in Brooklyn. Same type of option setup. He could take this screen from Kyrie to get to the zipper, but he elects for the pin down. Drew tries to shoot the gap, so he sits behind. Doesn't get the bounce, but you see the pattern. The Rockets can now boast they have the best self-creator the game has seen at least since Michael Jordan. He is proficient off the bounce from three. He is one of the highest percentile of mid-range volume shooters while being one of the highest percentile of mid-range efficient shooters. He can get to it in the post. Started getting to the rim very aggressively at the beginning of last season. He can do it all, and when the going gets tough, you can't get to familiar actions. He is the ultimate bailout card, and they will need that. But thankfully, the game's not all one way. What does Kevin Durant do outside of scoring that can benefit Houston? Many people would tell you not much, but many people don't watch and know basketball. Let's dive into the nuances of Kevin Durant's game that benefit Houston across the board. Durant has been a vastly underrated playmaker throughout his career. He's very proficient in the pick and roll, especially since leaving Golden State. Watch him come off the screen. He's going to let his roll man get past the slight tag from Ty Jerome here at the nail. He sees that the help from the weak side low man doesn't fully pull in, so he hits his roller. He makes these reads in his sleep, and he knows how to leverage that elite scoring ability to set up his playmaking. He hits the big and knows Brook Lopez is dropped back on him, so he's going to chase hard off of that, exploiting the drop coverage, and as he comes around on the other side, now Brook Lopez has to step up and contain hard. Giannis is in chase mode, acting as de facto ice coverage, so he can make this pass to the roller, seeing as there's no help pulling over. We have a baseline cut, and just like that, Durant creates a dunk from his playmaking ability. Not to mention the out-of-this-world scoring gravity. Wonderful action here where Plumlee is going to slip the ball screen and sprint into a down screen for Kevin Durant. As soon as the pass is made, we get deep nail help here from Levine. Sabonis closes in, so he's got his option to hit Devin Booker out here at the top of the key or Plumlee on the baseline, but he hits Book for an open triple. He commands so much gravity with the ball in his hands. Then there's the more traditional examples. He's going to draw the switch in Najee Marshall, starts his drive, and Edwards is going to peel off the big. And since Christie doesn't crack back and help the helper, Durant identifies the help immediately, creates a layup for his big. As for the defensive end, Durant has been long underrated in this category. The Nuggets go screen the screener action, but Russ uses that as a decoy to then drive. And what happens is Durant steps up, deters Russ at the rim, then is able to get back and challenge Gordon's first shot. Now Gordon recoups and gets a dunk, but that's an idea of what Durant can do. For most of his 2 years here, he was the lone shot blocker for this unit. Watch Trace Jackson-Davis play keeper on the DHO, then pitch it to Kuminga, and they screw up this switch. Royce should take Podziemski, Beal should take Trace Jackson-Davis, but Trace is able to roll to the rim, but Durant slides over and cleans up that mess. Then you have the crowd that says he's only good off the ball. That's not true either. Watch Donovan Mitchell reject this 77 action. Durant has to emergency switch to keep from a complete breakdown, but he slides, stays with the hesitation, follows him back out on the perimeter, stays through that amazing gather, and still blocks a star one-on-one. And defense is not all pretty. Sometimes it's about the fundamentals. Watch him run Tobias Harris off the line, stay with the jab step, takes the contact, and uses his frame to contest the shot. Not pretty, but that's what defense is all about. As much as I'd love to tell you, Durant is without flaws and there's nothing wrong with what Houston did, nothing to bat an eye at, we all know that's not true. As talented and complete as Durant is, there's two main areas that they need to keep an eye on, the turnovers and his motor. Turnovers have been an issue in the back half of Kevin Durant's career, and they mostly stem from just being a bit lackadaisical on the ball. Here he gets poked out, turns into a dunk, and this is something Houston has to watch out for. This area of concern was amplified because now we know Fred VanVleet has a torn ACL and won't be available at all this year, so Durant will definitely have to shoulder more of a ball handling role. The same concept applies to his passing turnovers. He generally has the right idea. The execution just gets a little careless. Right here, they get him the ball, and he's working for post position, but as that happens, we get into a situation where Kessler Edwards is right in the lane line, and I think he perfectly covers Najee Marshall, so he tries to make that pass, gets tipped. This time it's a pick and roll, the Raptors get into ice coverage, but you'll also notice 23 is going to come aggressively to the nail to tag Plumlee, and the weak side low man's brought all the way over to the midline, but Durant sails this back towards the sideline in the opposite direction, resulting in a turnover. I am slightly nitpicking with the motor. It's more of the fact that he's getting up in age, and last season there were spurts where he seemed slightly disinterested, like this, where he ends up giving a wide open putback dunk. And I think most of these issues come from rebounding. He's typically very competitive on the defensive end, but he can get lax on the glass. As Funk Flex says, this is the part that you asked for. How's he going to fit next to Alperen Sengun and Amen Thompson? Thompson's an alien-like athlete, tremendous slasher. Sengun is a supreme post operator. Two interesting fits. How does Durant slide in there? Next to Alperen, the first answer is simple. Allow KD to feed the post, or feed him at the high post, the elbows, wherever he wants the ball. That way they can discourage gap help. Right here, to draw in, he hits Van Fleet, and with a trusted shooter like KD, you know how that'll pan out. Durant has also developed elite chemistry with virtually every big he's played with, especially when it comes to DHOs. They'll get into situations like this where you pass it ahead, and he can read if there's an overplay, he cuts back door. If there's not, he follows it for a DHO and creates from there. This is another action we saw Durant run fairly often in Phoenix, could fit perfectly in Houston. In semi-transition, you get to this quick drag ball screen where Durant can catch it, attack immediately, typically forces the big into drop coverage, but also helps ease some of the spacing issues. And Durant is a trusted outlet for when Alperen Sengun gets into tough positions in the post. Here he's mismatch hunting, they bring a spy, so Jabari Smith does a great job of flashing to the middle. You can insert Kevin Durant into this perfectly and see him hitting this shot 8 out of 10 times, if we're being completely honest. Would you believe me if I said Bruce Brown set the blueprint for Amen Thompson close to a half-decade ago? Watch as he screens for KD, Marcus Smart gets stuck on the top side, Durant floats it over the top, and Amen is going to be a bigger, more athletic version of this getting downhill. Even down to the DHO game, we see PJ Tucker top lock Durant, not allow him to use the DHO, so he makes that pass, stays in space, allowing Kevin Durant to defeat this almost ice-like coverage, and then he finds Bruce Brown on the roll for a floater. These two should fit amazing together, and Durant's ability to play in tight coverages, score, and command gravity will open up more spots for Amen Thompson to cut, slash, receive in these utility guard type situation. In the constant evolving world of Kevin Durant, things never seem to slow down. In the time that this video was being created, Fred Van Fleet tears his ACL, and he seemed to be the perfect fit next to Durant. A trusted, savvy veteran point guard that can take away the ball handling duties, ease the turnover issues, set the table for Kevin Durant while being trusted on the defensive end. But of course, that doesn't seem to pan out. So now you're going to need an Amen Thompson to potentially handle the ball. It might be time for Reed Shepherd to step up. There's a lot that could be changing, but even with that being said, the road looks very bright for Houston. They carry a tough identity led by defensive mastermind Ime Udoka. They have an identity on the glass, identity on the defensive end. They're a tough, scrappy unit with size, athleticism, many guys over a 7-foot wingspan. They bring chaos on the defensive end, but now they've added their offensive centerpiece, the crown jewel, Kevin Wayne Durant. Let me know, do you think that'll be enough? Is this another rough exit for Kevin Durant? Will the situation blow completely up? Or will this be that last bit of vindication and proving point that Kevin Durant is truly one of the greatest players we have ever seen? Appreciate you all tuning in. You can find my socials in the comments below. Stay tuned. Much love.